Welcome everyone to the Malvern Retreat House and our reflections on the readings from this past Sunday. It's amazing how the imagination works and how we remember things. So what I'd like to do is sing something first. It's a song that we all know. It's a song that a lot of us love, and then we're going to learn a little bit more about it. Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart. So, it's a song everybody loves. The lyrics are really beautiful, and now we're going to hear where that comes from. So, a reading from the first book of Samuel. Samuel was sleeping in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was. The Lord called to Samuel, who answered, "Here I am." Samuel ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." "I did not call you," Eli said. "Go back to sleep." So he went back to sleep. Again, the Lord called Samuel, who rose and went to Eli. "Here I am," he said, "you called me." But Eli answered, "I did not call you. My son, go back to sleep." At that time, Samuel was not familiar with the Lord, because the Lord had not yet revealed anything to him. The Lord called Samuel again for a third time. Getting up and going to Eli, he said, "Here I am, you called me." Then Eli understood that the Lord was calling the youth. So he said to Samuel, "Go to sleep, and if you are called, reply, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" When Samuel went to sleep in his place, the Lord came and revealed his presence, calling out as before, "Samuel, Samuel." Samuel answered, "Speak, for your servant is listening." Samuel grew up, and the Lord was with him, not permitting any word of his to be without effect. The word of the Lord, thanks be to God. So that's where "Here I am, Lord" comes from. Okay, it's a great story. Let's kind of take a deeper look at it. Samuel was a young kid, and Eli is an older man who is mostly blind and has no longer the zeal that he used to have, and he's in the process of being replaced by Samuel. So, as Samuel is in the ark, in the tent where the Ark of the Covenant is kept, and goes to sleep. And the word call, or calling, is going to be used 11 times in this reading. It's like a mantra, over and over and over again. So God calls Samuel, doesn't understand what's happening, goes to Eli, his mentor, "Here I am, I'm not calling you, go back." Calls a second time, "Eli, I'm not calling you, go back and go to sleep." Third time, called, "Eli," and then Eli finally gets it. You know, you would hope, as a wise old man, he would have realized it right away, but this is why Eli needs to be replaced. It's only on the third time does it sink in. So God's calling you, Samuel. Go back, go to sleep. If God calls, say, "Here I am, I come to do your will." And sure enough, for the fourth time, God calls the youth, Samuel. He gets up and he says, "Speak, for your servant is listening." This is the call of Samuel. And this is the way that this reading ends. Samuel grew up, and the Lord was with him, not permitting any word of his to be without effect. That is also the sentence that's used to describe what happens to Jesus after he's dedicated in the temple and he's found. That he starts to grow up, and the Lord was with him, and no fear and no harm ever happens to him. So, this is the call of Samuel. And Samuel was going to be one of the great prophets in the Old Testament. Well, God is calling you and I as well. God calls all of us for some mission, to do something. And whatever God is calling us to do, if we don't do it, it doesn't get done. It just doesn't get done. And God has a mission for me and a mission for you, that if we don't do it, part of God's plan of salvation goes unfulfilled. Now, God's call is different for all of us, but we're all called. The Latin word for call is vocation, or vocare. So that's where we get this word vocation. Vocation just isn't for priests, or religious sisters, or deacons, or brothers. All Christians are called. Like as a priest, that's a calling within a calling. But people are called to be husbands and wives. The best husband and the best wife they can be. People are called to be parents. So be the best parents you can be. People are called to be children. So be loving children, obedient children. Listen to that call, lean into it, and just be a great child or a grandchild, whatever it is. We're also called to be involved in our parishes. So make sure you're involved with some ministry in the parish, and that you're building into the parish and not just taking things out of it. Because if that happens, we become consumers. We just see the parish or the church as something to be consumed. And if it meets my needs, I'm happy. And if it doesn't, well, then it's not doing its job. No, you're called to be actively engaged in the parish and in the church. So lean into that calling. We're all called to share our faith too. So just imitate the example of Samuel this week and listen to God calling you. God doesn't call out loud for most people. We don't actually hear it. God calls in more subtle ways. He just prompts us, or he just gives us little hints to do something. Or here's another way that God calls us. Maybe God calls us by making us angry about something. And we're so angry about it that we want to change it. Hey, that's the way God calls some people. But it's still a calling. So, listen to your heart. Listen to those promptings. What do you get angry about? Well, then maybe start to change it. Or what do you really get passionate about? Well, then react to that as well. But that's the way God calls us today. So listen to God's calling and act on it. Thanks, everyone, and God bless.